Super quickly before we start, our next episode is going to be the last of the season where we'll be wrapping up with a community Q&A. I'll be answering your questions related to anything about being a woman in tech, and so leave your questions in the comments section down below or follow the link in the description box. All right, now let's get started.
The way that I've approached that is I've gone part-time.
Be in tech when I'm 70 years old. It's crazy. Like, I wake up and do the things that I used to do for free, like until 2 o'clock in the morning just for fun.
At different points in life, different things were important to me. I think also it happens for everybody, but the only person who can prioritize that is you.
Hello and welcome to Real Talk, a show by Rewriting the Code and hosted by myself, Mayuko. In each episode, we invite you, people from every corner of the RTC community, to join us and have real conversations about helping more women into the tech career of their dreams. Each episode premieres live on the Rewriting the Code YouTube channel, so make sure to subscribe and interact with us in the premiere live chat, and comment down below your thoughts on the episode as you watch it. The theme of today's episode is growing up with a career in tech. How does having a career influence other parts of our life that aren't work-related? Is a tech career seen as more of a stepping stone towards something else, or do people see themselves doing it forever? I'm excited to share the thoughts, perspectives, and worries on today's topic from myself and also some other RTC members in the community. So at the beginning of each episode, we'll hear from students and new grads in the RTC community. We'll learn about how they got into technology, what's been on their mind, and their thoughts on today's theme. Today's guests are Emma Velicky and Autumn Capasso.
Hi, my name is Emma Velicky, and I'm a PM at Microsoft.
I'm Autumn Capasso. I'm a software engineer at AWS. I'm on the board for Millspouse Coders, and I'm finishing up my degree in software development and security from the University of Maryland.
When I was in high school, I was 100% set on being a neurosurgeon. I really wanted to drill into people's brains and cut them open. That felt like the most empowering thing that I could think to do. And then when I went to college, I started taking these pre-med classes, and it was like, okay, I can do this path. I can do this residency. That's maybe 8 years. And it started to feel a little heavier then, like thinking, oh, okay, my life isn't going to start until I do all of these things. And then, I took a CS class on a whim because I had some other friends who were like, there seems like there's a lot of money in this industry. Like, is there any way we can do it? And I took it, and I really, really enjoyed, solving the problems. I really enjoyed this idea that one person can go and, kickstart something in motion. I was always, trying to come up with ideas for apps and ideas for projects. And I really felt like it was very, very freeing.
I originally went to community college to do web design. Unfortunately, they didn't have enough teachers to teach it, so I ended up transferring to graphic design, and I did that for a while. My husband ended up getting stationed in Pennsylvania, so I had to move and leave Hawaii. I had to go to school online, and it wasn't very profitable having to move and get new customers, and I had ended up watching the movie Hidden Figures. I think we all kind of struggle with imposter syndrome and always thinking well, I'm not really smart enough to do that, and I kind of thought about it, and I'm like, you can continue to think that you're not smart enough and that you can't do these things, or you can realize that some people didn't even have the opportunity to do these things. Thought about do I want to tell my kids that I didn't do things because I just assumed I couldn't do them, I don't want my kids to ever grow up and think that they can't do things. So I was like, I'm just gonna do it.
There are elements that I enjoy about being a PM, right? I really do like the business. I like, coming in, straightening things out, prioritizing. There's elements when the machine is well oiled, you can feel very good about it. You can feel like you're really fine, you're really productive. And so I think if my job was like that, maybe most of the time, there is a world where I could see potentially even going down to 2 days a week that could be sustainable. There's just a level of do I want in my whole life to just have this thing that I feel like I'm just tolerating just for the paycheck? And legitimately, I've wondered that, because I think there are a lot of people who are interested in the creative arts that say, you know what? I have to be someone's assistant and pick up dry cleaning, and that's just what it is. I have to work at a diner to fund my writing career, and that's just what it is. So I felt like, I'm just doing this. Microsoft is my diner. That's good. That's good with me. So I don't think that realistically I would stay in it long term. I'm always trying to make it another year, another 6 months. That's the time horizon that I'm thinking of.
I want to be in tech when I'm 70 years old. It's crazy. Like, I wake up and do the things that I used to do for free, like till 2 o'clock in the morning just for fun. I love building things. I love learning about new things. I hate doing things that are the same thing every day. My job's never the same thing every day. You get to constantly learn new languages and build amazing things. No other job can you learn things for free on YouTube. You can learn from people that are teaching other people. And like, we teach so many workshops with Milspouse coders, that exchange of knowledge and just going to other organizations and learning from other people. The conferences, building things, meeting new people, it's just amazing. So I honestly want to be in tech for forever.
A lot of the transitions, those classic milestones, are very easy to do in tech. You have pretty generous PTO. You have a lot of income to do things like buying a house and qualify for a mortgage. So that's really great. The ones that I think are harder, pursuing your passions and pursuing things that you're really interested in. And that's, I think, the part that I'm still working on. Spoiler alert, I'm not, in love with working in tech. It has been a challenge for me to say, is there anything else I can do that is going to pay me comparably or have the golden handcuffs, the multi-layered tech compensation packages where you're supposed to be staying for this long, you get this much stock, stay this long, you get your starting bonus, you get this thing. And so it's like, okay, well, when do I ever leave? And so it was a real challenge to say when do I get to the point where I feel like it's okay to leave, that I've set myself up enough, but not for the rest of my life, that I can go and jump out on my own. And I think there's this safety blanket that comes with tech that makes it really hard to do that. I said, I'm going to quit. I told my manager, after 2 weeks, you're not going to see me again. I am going to quit. And he was like, okay, just take the 2 weeks, think about it. And so I took the first week and I was a mess. I was so stressed out at that point. I was engaged and I felt so uncomfortable to put that weight on my husband, especially with the American healthcare system as it is, right? I have to go on his insurance. It really had worn me down at that point. And I wasn't in a great place with mental health. And I was like, what if I just quit my job and then I'm just unemployed and I'm not making any money and I don't feel happy, and it's all the worst things. So I went back. I just said okay, I'm not ready to quit, switch my product around. I took a bunch of PTO. The way that I've approached that is I've gone part-time. Technically, I'm still a full-time employee for tax purposes. I'm still exempt with salary, but I work 3 days a week and I get 75% of my pay and I keep all my stock and I keep all my benefits. And it's actually been going very well in terms of I feel more productive. I feel more energized. I've heard from my manager at one point, he said, really, you're actually 100% productivity. This is so great. The only thing is, in that case, I'm well, why am I getting a pay reduction? But other than that element, yeah, it's been going pretty good. There is still that core component where I'm not satisfied with what I do. I don't feel proud of it and I don't feel excited about it. And there have been some organizational shakeups that I'm feeling a little bit less supported by management. And so I'm kind of wondering, did my stopgap work? And now it's time to kind of just move on with my life. But I'm honestly not sure, even as I'm talking to you, what I'm going to do.
My life is all about big life transitions. I got married really young. My husband's in the Navy. We're constantly moving. I don't come from the traditional go to college, graduate from high school family. So it's always kind of been a struggle to have to fight to get somewhere, It wasn't like anyone was going to teach me how to fill out college applications or how to get financial aid. At one point, my mom was like, you should just get a job and help me pay the rent. I'm just but I want to go to college, They don't really understand technology, I would say. Honestly, the best advice is just building relationships and kind of seeking out people that have the same appetite for learning as you do. You can meet amazing people in the tech community on Twitter, organizations like Rewriting the Code, organizations like Milspouse Coders. I think college is really great, but I don't know if college is always the full picture when you want to be in tech. It's really a group sport, and you have to kind of learn how to build relationships and work with people. And I feel like the relationships that you build in tech are the most important part.
So I think that go to therapy is probably the number one best piece of advice I've gotten. I consider myself to be an introspective, self-reflective person. So I always thought like therapy is not going to help me. And also I felt like the other people in my life kind of need to make these changes. Like it's not going to get any better for me until they do. But going to therapy, like it really is having that safe space with a person who's not involved in your personal affairs, who can still be your advocate, but also like has a little bit of a clear eye on the situation. I definitely feel to be such a calmer person. And it was such a good investment in myself.
If you admire someone that you see like on social media or in a group, you know, and rewriting the code or just any group that you're in or in a class, and they're like really smart and you think they're really good at something, ask them to get coffee. I get my best advice just asking people to spend like 15-30 minutes with you. And there's so many really brilliant people that will share that advice with you. Nobody knows everything. The people that you look up to and think are the most amazing people have just the same imposter syndrome that you have. I think when I was going through college, I was like, oh, my professors were like, don't Google anything and you need to like be able to like come up with all this. And they just kind of make everything seem really unobtainable. And then you get to the real world and people Google things, people ask for help, and you should ask for help. Don't ever think that you're less than other people, you know, you're enough. And if you get that job or, you know, you're in college, you deserve to be wherever you are.
Today's topic is about growing up with a career in technology. So when we think of careers, they tend to be long-term, and so we're experiencing lots of different life changes and challenges all throughout. And as I've gotten to know the journeys of different people in tech, I found that inevitably your work life and your career is going to somehow interact with your personal life. And this is even true for people who like to keep those two things very separate. And so I wanted to talk about this in today's episode, because while careers are kind of the focal point of conversation when we talk about the tech industry, in the end, it does have an effect on the rest of our lives outside of work. So I remember when I was first starting out with my career, I had no idea how I would be dealing with big life changes. I always firmly believed that things were always going to work out in one way or the other, but one of my biggest worries was how my career would be affected from these big shifts. And now that I'm further down the line, like I've gotten married, bought a house, switched a bunch of jobs, even did a career change, I can say that I'm a little less worried now because of all the experiences I had behind me to tell me that I will always deal with things when they happen. I've even talked about some of these big life shifts publicly on my YouTube channel. Interestingly, as I've done that, I've actually heard from a lot of people who also have similar worries about the future of their career in technology as their life situations change. Because also just being a woman in tech, it's not uncommon to hear that more women are actually leaving the industry than staying, otherwise known as the leaky bucket problem. In fact, a 2017 report by the Kapoor Center found that women were twice as likely to leave the tech industry compared to their male counterparts. It found that unfairness was the main driver for those from underrepresented backgrounds to leave the industry altogether. And of course, I'm sure the pandemic had a huge effect on this with things like the Great Resignation, which led to a record number of people leaving their jobs. Because now, let's be real, it's really challenging to be an underrepresented person in technology. Because unfortunately, sometimes we have to deal with like really less than ideal situations in the workplace that can be really challenging. And it sucks that we have to deal with these situations just because of who we are. But I will say, ever since I entered the tech industry, things have gotten better, and I believe that they'll continue to get better. But regardless of all of the things that cause someone to leave a job or make job changes, it all comes down to the fact that at the end of the day, we're in the driver's seat for how we want to lead our careers and life. We get to decide what opportunities we say yes to and no to. And I think something that's really important to think about is not just how it'll affect your career, but also your life outside of work too. Things like the amount of paid leave and its policies, vacation policies, the company culture, and even like how quickly a company moves can all affect what happens to your life outside of work. Everyone's needs are different, and so it's a really good exercise to really think about what's important to you, not just in the current moment, but also maybe a few years down the line too. Understanding your needs can help you gain the clarity to iterate towards the life and career that you want, which ultimately will determine how you're going to meet life's challenges and changes along the way. Because no one can see what the next 5 or 10 years is going to look like. We just can't predict the future. And so I think it's only natural to worry about it and think about like what's going to happen to us, what's our career going to be like. But also thinking about it in the long term just means that you really care about having a say in what you want your life to look like. Just remember throughout all this that you're not alone in the journey. There's a lot of people out there who've been through what you've been through and have had similar experiences. So never be afraid to reach out for help and to talk to those folks to gain some perspectives, especially from this community. In our next part, we invite someone from the industry side in the RTC community to give insight into what's going on in their world. We'll also find out about their journey into technology, their thoughts on today's episode, and any advice for people following in their footsteps. Today, our guest is Kristen Thiede.
I'm Kristen Thiede. I'm the Chief People Officer and Head of Strategic Partnerships at Upside. My first real job in tech was at Google. I was a category associate. And so they'd never had that job before. So I was the very first one they hired. They interviewed me a number of times and told me I didn't get the job. The third interview process, I showed up with a PowerPoint presentation on how Google could not survive without me. And so finally they hired me. So persistence definitely worked. I had the opportunity to really make that category associate job anything I wanted. So I found a way to add value to what the team was trying to do. At the time, I really liked negotiating the big deals, big partnerships. We did all of the deals that needed to be done. And so then what next? We had to wait 2 years till they need to be renegotiated. I was young at that point and didn't want to not do anything for 2 years. And we learned that we were making a lot of money in Brazil and in India. I raised my hand and said, hey, could I go to India and talk to all the media and telecommunications companies? And they're like, yeah. So I'd go to India for 2 weeks and I'd write emails to all these people and say, hey, I'm Google and I want to talk to you about advertising. So at that point, Google hadn't opened any offices in India yet. So I was Google. So everyone did want to talk to me. We negotiated partnerships with all the media and telecommunications companies in India to provide Google search as well as Google ads on their platforms. And then I'd come home to California. And then 2 weeks later, I'd fly to Brazil and do the same thing. Then we opened offices in India and we bought a company in Brazil, in Belo Horizonte, and opened an office in Brazil. And then it made sense for me to go on and do something else. So I joined a team called New Business Development at Google. We worked on the books project, mapping projects. And then my last big project at Google was Google Fiber. So I joined a startup called Starry, high-speed internet access through the air. And then I left Starry to start my own business. And it was connecting female entrepreneurs with insurance. And it worked, and we were working out the kinks, but I was doing it by myself. I didn't want to raise any money at the time, and I did not want to take any venture capital or to take any money from anybody. And so I ended up joining Two Sigma to run their data acquisition. I think so, yeah. Google did an amazing job of having senior leaders who were women and having a diverse population of people. There was never a point where I didn't see myself or see someone that I wanted to be. Prior to getting to Google, I never had that. I never looked up at the senior executives and said, oh, I really want to be like so-and-so. And at Google, it provided that example for who you want to be and who you can see. I think that's really important. Also, Google opened up professionally for me the idea of you can't do it wrong. No one's done it before, right? We're building something from scratch. I'm not trying to put you in a box. I'm asking you, right? Here's a problem. How are we going to get there? How are we going to build towards this collective vision we have for the future? And I found a lot of comfort in figuring it out, and there was no right answer. I found that really empowering. Everybody's different. I always knew I wanted to be a mom. When I was going to Brazil and India, I did not have children and I had no work-life balance. I just worked and I was super happy about doing that. At different points in life, different things were important to me. When I first had my son, being home to put him to bed was the thing that mattered to me. That was my cutoff, right? I had to be home at a certain time, come hell or high water. That was where I needed to be. As the kids got older, it changed and I really wanted to be home in the morning to walk him to school, because he would hold my hand and he would talk to me and we'd walk through New York City. It was this amazing thing. And that was really lovely. And that became the thing that I wanted to do. And I didn't know that was the thing I really wanted to do until I had a breakfast meeting. I didn't take my son and my daughter to school that morning, and the person stood me up and I was enraged. And I was like, why am I so angry? People make mistakes, calendars, what have you. I was like, no, I'm misvaluing what's important to me. What's really important to me at this moment in time now isn't the evening, right? Now it's the morning. And so I changed. I think also it happens for everybody. Some people have dogs, some people train for marathons, some people are gardening, but the only person who can prioritize that is you. You have to figure out what that is, what's your thing, and then make time for it. Being a woman in tech is hard. There's the East Coast, West Coast difference. And then there is attire. What are you supposed to wear? So are you supposed to wear jeans and a t-shirt, a polo shirt and khakis? That works for the guys, but what is the equivalent for women in a way that makes you feel comfortable? Figuring that out is challenging. You don't want to stand out in certain situations. That I have found was really stressful for me, especially as a young person, and also having people comment on it. I remember I went to a meeting once and someone says, oh, we don't get that dressed up here. A comment sometimes made things a little bit more challenging. It's saying yes and showing up, putting yourself in a position where you can be successful when given an opportunity, even if you don't feel ready. Would you like to go to this conference? Yes, I would. Would you like a seat at the table? Yes, I would. Would you like to go to this meeting? Would you like this promotion? Can you take on this project? The courage to say yes quickly becomes the courage to say no. At Upside, we use OKRs, objectives and key results, so it's very clear what we're supposed to be doing quarter by quarter and over the year's time. So it's all about trade-offs. Maybe it's yes and, right? Yes, I can take on this new opportunity, but I may have to let something else fall.
And that's our show. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Real Talk. Again, the next episode will be actually our last of the season, where we'll be wrapping up with a community Q&A. Make sure to send in your questions by leaving a comment in the post linked in the description box or by leaving a comment down below. By the way, the questions can be anything about being a woman in technology, so I'm really looking forward to seeing your questions. Share with others what you learned, resonated with, or were surprised by tagging us on social media at Rewriting the Code and using the hashtag RTCRealTalk. And make sure to subscribe to this channel to get the next episode. And if you'd like to learn more about Rewriting the Code, which empowers the next generation of college women to be leaders, then go to rewritingthecode.org. I'm Mayuko, and I'll see you next time. Bye!